The Psychopomp. Let's explore the fascinating concept of the psychopomp across various cultures, starting with the Greeks and then branching out to other civilizations. A detailed look at their biographies, where applicable, histories, mythologies, and legends, focusing on key figures and their roles in guiding souls to the afterlife. Greek mythology, psychopomps of the ancient Greeks. In ancient Greek mythology, psychopomps were integral to the cosmology of death and the underworld. The Greeks viewed death as a journey, and psychopomps facilitated this transition. Charon. Biography. Charon, often depicted as a grim, elderly ferryman, is the son of Erebus, primordial darkness, and Nyx, night. He's not a god but a minor deity or spirit tasked with a specific role in the underworld. History. Charon's origins lie in pre-Homeric Greek traditions, but he becomes prominent in works like the Iliad and the Odyssey, and later in Hellenistic art and literature. His role solidified as Greek beliefs about the afterlife evolved, particularly with the development of the underworld ruled by Hades. Mythology. Charon ferries the souls of the dead across the river Styx, or sometimes Acheron, to the realm of Hades. To receive passage, the deceased must pay him with an obol, a small coin placed in the mouth of the corpse during burial. Those without payment were doomed to wander the shores for 100 years. Charon is often portrayed as stern and unkempt, wielding an oar, and his boat is a symbol of the inevitable crossing. Legends. In Virgil's Aeneid, Aeneas encounters Charon, who initially refuses him passage because he's alive, but the Sibyl placates him with a golden bow. This highlights Charon's strict adherence to his duty. Hermes Psychopompus. Biography. Hermes, the swift-footed messenger god, son of Zeus and Maia, is one of the Olympian gods with multiple roles, including that of a psychopomp, literally soul guide in Greek. History. Hermes' psychopomp role emerges from his function as a boundary crosser, between gods and mortals, and between life and death. His association with travel and transitions made him a natural guide for souls, a role emphasized in Homeric hymns and later Greek art. Mythology. Hermes escorts the souls of the departed to the underworld's entrance, handing them off to Charon or guiding them directly to Hades' realm. In the Odyssey, he leads the souls of Penelope's suitors, slain by Odysseus, to the afterlife, using his golden staff to herd them. His winged sandals and hat symbolize his ability to move between realms. Legends. Hermes' psychopomp duties are less grim than Charon's. He's a compassionate guide, reflecting his trickster yet benevolent nature. In some tales, he even negotiates with Hades to return souls, as with Persephone. Egyptian mythology. Anubis and the weighing of the heart. Anubis. Biography. Anubis, or Anpu in Egyptian, is the jackal-headed god of mummification and the afterlife, son of Nephthys and either Osiris or Set, depending on the myth. History. Anubis predates Osiris as the primary Egyptian death deity, appearing in Old Kingdom texts, circa 2686 to 2181 BCE. As Osiris rose to prominence as lord of the underworld, Anubis shifted to a psychopomp role, guiding souls and overseeing their judgment. Mythology. Anubis escorts the deceased to the Hall of Two Truths, where their hearts are weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth and justice. If the heart is lighter, the soul proceeds to the field of reeds, paradise. If heavier, it's devoured by Ammit, the soul-eating monster. Anubis' jackal form ties to his association with cemeteries, where jackals scavenged. Legends. In the myth of Osiris, Anubis aids in his mummification after Set's betrayal, establishing him as the protector of the dead. His black color symbolizes regeneration, contrasting with death's finality. Norse mythology. Valkyries and Hermr. Valkyries. Biography. The Valkyries, choosers of the slain, are a group of female warrior spirits serving Odin, the All-Father. Notable Valkyries include Brynhildr and Freya, who also claims half the slain. History. Emerging in Viking Age Scandinavia, c. 8th to 11th centuries, Valkyries appear in the Poetic Edda and Prose Edda, blending warrior and psychopomp roles. Mythology. Valkyries ride over battlefields, selecting brave warriors to die and escorting their souls to Valhalla, Odin's hall, where they feast until Ragnarok. Freya, as a psychopomp, takes her share to her realm, Folkvangr. They're often depicted with wings or on horseback, wielding spears. Legends. In the Volsunga saga, Brynhilder's defiance of Odin leads to her punishment, showing their autonomy. Their dual role as deathbringers and guides underscores Norse views of honorable death. Hermr. Biography. Hermr, a son of Odin, is a lesser-known figure, often depicted as a brave messenger. History. His Psychopomp role is detailed in Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, 13th century, reflecting earlier oral traditions. Mythology. After Baldr's death, Hermr rides Sleipnir, Odin's eight-legged horse, to Hel's realm to plead for his return. Though he fails, his journey positions him as a psychopomp bridging the living and dead. Legends. Hermr's mission highlights the Norse acceptance of death's inevitability, contrasting with the Valkyrie's selective heroism. Mesoamerican mythology. Xolotl, Aztec. Xolotl. Biography. Xolotl, the dog-headed twin of Quetzalcoatl, is the Aztec god of lightning, fire, and death. History. Appearing in Aztec codices, c. 13th to 16th centuries, Xolotl reflects Mesoamerican beliefs in cyclical death and rebirth. Mythology. Xolotl guides souls through Mictlan, the nine-layered underworld, a perilous journey requiring offerings and trials. His canine form ties to dogs' roles as companions to the dead in Aztec burials. Legends. In one myth, Xolotl weeps so hard at humanity's sacrifice to restart the sun that his eyes fall out, linking him to deformity and sorrow. His duality with Quetzalcoatl, life/death, underscores Aztec cosmology. Hindu mythology. Yama. Yama. Biography. Yama, the first mortal to die, becomes the god of death and ruler of Naraka, the underworld, son of Surya, the sun, and Saranyu. History. Yama appears in the Rigveda, circa 1500 BCE, and evolves in later texts like the Mahabharata and Puranas. Mythology. Yama's messengers or he himself escorts souls to his realm, where they're judged based on karma. He rides a buffalo and wields a noose to capture souls, symbolizing inevitability. Legends. In the Kathopanishad, Yama teaches Nachiketa about the soul's immortality, blending his role as psychopomp with philosophical depth. His twin sister, Yami, mourns his death, tying him to human emotion. Other cultures. A brief overview. Celtic mythology. The Morrigan, a war goddess, sometimes acts as a psychopomp, foretelling death and guiding warrior souls, often as a crow. West African traditions. Eshu, Yoruba, or Legba, Vodou, serve as trickster messengers, guiding souls between worlds, reflecting their liminal nature. Christianity. The Archangel Michael occasionally takes a psychopomp role, weighing souls or escorting them to heaven, as seen in medieval art. Japanese Shinto/Buddhism, Shinigami, death spirits, or Jizo Bosatsu guide souls, with Jizo protecting children's spirits in the underworld. Each culture's psychopomp reflects its views on death, whether a journey, judgment, or transformation. Comparison to death gods. To compare psychopomps to death gods, we need to distinguish their roles and characteristics, as they often overlap but serve different purposes in mythology. Psychopomps are primarily guides or escorts for souls transitioning to the afterlife, while death gods typically rule over death itself, the underworld, or the process of dying. Greek mythology. Psychopomps versus death gods. Psychopomps, Charon and Hermes. Role. Charon ferries souls across the Styx/Acheron for a fee, acting as a neutral transporter. Hermes escorts souls to the underworld's edge, embodying a compassionate guide. Domain. Neither rules the underworld, they're facilitators. Charon operates on the river, Hermes crosses realms. Personality. Charon is grim, taciturn, and duty-bound. Hermes is lively, cunning, and multifaceted, messenger, trickster, guide. Cultural significance. They represent the journey of death, not its essence. Charon's coin ritual underscores Greek burial customs, while Hermes reflects transition and mobility. Death god, Hades. Role. Hades is the ruler of the underworld, presiding over the dead and enforcing its laws. He doesn't guide souls but governs their fate. Domain: the entire underworld, Erebus, Tartarus, Elysium, falls under his control, alongside his wife, Persephone. Personality: stern, just, and unyielding, yet not malevolent. He's more a king than a reaper, focused on order rather than death's act. Cultural significance: Hades embodies death's permanence and the afterlife structure, contrasting with the Psychopomp's transient roles. His abduction of Persephone ties him to seasonal cycles. Comparison: Charon and Hermes are subordinates to Hades, handling logistics while he reigns supreme. Psychopomps are active in the soul's journey, Hades is static, a judge and lord. The Psychopomps lack the power and dread Hades inspires. Egyptian mythology: Psychopomp versus death god. Psychopomp, Anubis. Role: Anubis guides souls to the Hall of Two Truths and oversees the heart-weighing ceremony, ensuring a fair passage to the afterlife. Domain: cemeteries, mummification, and the judgment process, not the afterlife itself. Personality: solemn, protective, and meticulous, with a focus on ritual purity. Cultural significance: Anubis reflects Egypt's obsession with preparation for death, mummification, and moral judgment. Death god, Osiris. Role: Osiris rules the afterlife as Lord of the Dead, having transcended death after being murdered and resurrected by Isis. Domain: the field of reeds, paradise, and the broader underworld, symbolizing eternal life. Personality: benevolent, wise, and regenerative, often depicted as a mummified king. Cultural significance: Osiris represents death's transformative power and the promise of immortality, tied to the Nile cycles. Comparison: Anubis serves Osiris, preparing souls for his judgment and rule. Anubis is hands-on, guiding and protecting, while Osiris is the destination, a passive, divine authority. Anubis deals with the process, Osiris is the outcome. Norse mythology: Psychopomps versus death god. Psychopomps, Valkyries and Hermir. Role: Valkyries choose the slain and escort them to Valhalla or Folkvanger. Hermir journeys to hell to negotiate for souls, for example, Baldur. Domain: battlefields, Valkyries, or specific missions, Hermir, not the afterlife's governance. Personality: Valkyries are fierce, selective, and heroic, Hermir is brave but subordinate, a messenger. Cultural significance: they embody Norse ideals of valor and fate, guiding only the worthy or attempting heroic rescues. Death god, Hel. Role: Hel rules the underworld, also called Hell, housing those who die of sickness, old age, or dishonor, those unfit for Valhalla. Domain: a cold, bleak realm for the majority of the dead, contrasting with Odin's and Freya's halls. Personality: grim, impartial, and unyielding, often depicted as half-living, half-dead. Cultural significance: Hel personifies death's inevitability for the unheroic, reflecting Norse fatalism. Comparison: Valkyries and Hermir are selective or mission-driven, serving higher powers, Odin, Freya, while Hel governs a broader, less glamorous afterlife. Psychopomps elevate the chosen, Hel accepts the rest, embodying death's universality. Mesoamerican mythology: Psychopomp versus death god. Psychopomp, Xolotl. Role: Xolotl guides souls through Mictlan's 9 levels, aiding their perilous journey. Domain: the transition to the underworld, linked to lightning and dogs. Personality: melancholic, loyal, and dualistic, tied to Quetzalcoatl, with a tragic undertone. Cultural significance: Xolotl reflects the Aztec view of death as a challenging passage requiring divine aid. Death god, Mictlantecuhtli. Role: Mictlantecuhtli rules Mictlan with his wife, Mictecacihuatl, overseeing all who reach the underworld. Domain: the deepest layer of Mictlan, a place of rest after the soul's trials. Personality: skeletal, menacing, and possessive, delighting in bones and death's finality. Cultural significance: he embodies death's stark reality, demanding offerings, and resisting the living, for example, Quetzalcoatl's theft of bones. Comparison: Xolotl is a helper, easing the journey, while Mictlantecuhtli is the stern endpoint, ruling with authority. The Psychopomp mitigates death's harshness, the death god enforces it. Hindu mythology, Psychopomp versus Death God. Psychopomp, Yama, dual role. Role: Yama both escorts souls, via his messengers or personally, and rules Naraka, blurring the Psychopomp/Death God line. Domain: the afterlife's judgment and Naraka, hell-like realm for punishment. Personality: just, authoritative, and philosophical, as seen in his dialogue with Nachiketa. Cultural significance: Yama bridges mortality and divinity, embodying dharma, duty, in death. Comparison note: in Hinduism, Yama uniquely combines roles, unlike cultures with distinct figures. His messengers act as psychopomps under his command, while he reigns as death's overseer, akin to a death god. This duality reflects Hinduism's integrated view of death and karma. Key differences and overlaps. 1. Function. Psychopomps, facilitators of the soul's journey, Heron, Anubis, Valkyries, Zolotl. They're active, mobile, and transitional. Death gods, rulers or personifications of death/the underworld, Hades, Osiris, Hell, Mictlantecuhtli. They're stationary, authoritative, and final. 2. Power. Psychopomps have limited scope, serving a higher power or process. Death gods wield dominion, often judging or controlling the dead's fate. 3. Tone. Psychopomps can be neutral, Heron, compassionate, Hermes, Anubis, or selective, Valkyries, easing the transition. Death gods are often stern, Hades, Hell, benevolent yet distant, Osiris, or fearsome, Mictlantecuhtli, embodying death's weight. 4. Cultural reflection. Psychopomps emphasize the journey, death as a passage, Greek rivers, Aztec trials, Norse heroism. Death gods reflect the destination, death's order, Hades, renewal, Osiris, or inevitability, Hell. Overlap. Figures like Yama and Anubis straddle both roles, guiding and ruling, showing how some cultures merge these concepts based on their worldview. A description of the Grim Reaper, the Angel of Death, and Azrael as types of psychopomps. Let's dive into the Grim Reaper, the Angel of Death, and Azrael as psychopomps, figures that guide souls to the afterlife. While they share the psychopomp role of escorting the deceased, their origins, depictions, and cultural contexts differ significantly. Detailed descriptions of each, focusing on their characteristics, histories, and roles as soul guides. The Grim Reaper. Description: the Grim Reaper is a skeletal figure cloaked in a hooded black robe, wielding a scythe. Often depicted with an hourglass, it symbolizes the inevitable end of life. Its face is typically hidden or a bare skull, emphasizing death's anonymity and impartiality. Origins and history. The Grim Reaper emerged in European folklore during the Middle Ages, particularly around the 14th century amid the Black Death, 1347 to 1351, which killed millions and heightened death's cultural presence. It draws from earlier Greco-Roman imagery, like the scythe-wielding Cronus, Time, or Thanatos, death personified, but crystallized as a distinct figure in Christian Europe. The name Grim Reaper appears later, in English texts like The Dance of Death, 15th century, reflecting medieval danse macabre where skeletons lead the living to their graves. Role as psychopomp, the Grim Reaper both claims and guides souls. It's not merely a harvester of life, cutting it down with the scythe, but also an escort, leading the deceased to the afterlife, typically an unspecified realm in Christian tradition, such as heaven, hell, or purgatory. Unlike other psychopomps, it rarely interacts with the living beyond its fatal task, maintaining a silent, ominous presence. Cultural significance. The Grim Reaper embodies mortality's universality and inevitability, a stark reminder during plague-ridden times. Its psychopomp role is less about judgment or compassion and more about transition, an unstoppable force ensuring souls depart the mortal plane. Imagery and legends. In folklore, it appears at the moment of death, sometimes preceded by omens, for example, a chill wind. Modern pop culture, for example, The Seventh Seal, portrays it as a chess-playing specter, blending menace with a touch of personality, though this is a later embellishment. The Angel of Death. Description: the Angel of Death varies across traditions but is generally a winged, ethereal being, sometimes radiant and benevolent, other times dark and fearsome. In Judeo-Christian contexts, it's an agent of God, tasked with ending life and guiding souls. Its appearance might include a sword, scroll, or scales, reflecting divine authority or judgment. Origins and history. The concept stems from ancient Near Eastern and Abrahamic traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, the destroying angel, Malach HaMavet, appears in Exodus 12, verse 23, sparing or striking during the Passover, and in 2 Samuel 24, verse 16, smiting Jerusalem's inhabitants. Early Jewish texts like the Talmud expand its role, while Christianity integrates it into angelic hierarchies, often linking it to Michael or unnamed angels of death. Its psychopomp nature solidifies in medieval theology and art. Role as psychopomp, the angel of death bridges life and afterlife, executing God's will by taking life and then escorting the soul to its destination, heaven, hell, or a liminal state. In some Christian traditions, it weighs souls, akin to Michael's role in art, while in Jewish lore, it delivers them to judgment. Unlike the Grim Reaper, it's explicitly divine, acting with purpose rather than blind inevitability. Cultural significance. The angel of death reflects a monotheistic view of death as divinely ordained, balancing mercy and justice. It's less a personification of death itself and more a servant of a higher power, offering a moral framework for the soul's passage. Imagery and legends. In art, it's depicted battling demons for souls, for example, medieval manuscripts, or gently lifting spirits skyward. Folklore sometimes conflates it with Satan or other dark angels, though this is a misreading. Its role is sacred, not malevolent. Azrael. Description. Azrael, known as the Islamic angel of death, Malik al-Maut, is a towering, majestic figure with wings, often described with countless eyes or tongues, one for each person alive, symbolizing his omniscience over mortality. In some traditions, he carries a scroll or book listing the living and dead. Origins and history. Azrael emerges in Islamic theology, named in post-Quranic texts like the Hadith and later mystical traditions, for example, Sufism. The Quran mentions an unnamed angel of death, 32:11, tasked with taking souls, which scholars identify as Azrael. His roots may trace to Jewish influences, for example, the angel of death, and pre-Islamic Arabian beliefs, adapted into Islam's angelic framework by the 7th to 8th century CE. Role as psychopomp. Azrael gently separates the soul from the body at God's command, then guides it to the barzakh, an intermediate realm where souls await judgment day. His approach varies. For the righteous, he's tender, easing their transition with peace. For the wicked, he's stern, reflecting their fate. Unlike the Grim Reaper, he doesn't kill arbitrarily, his actions align with divine decree. Cultural significance. Azrael embodies Islam's view of death as a return to Allah, a natural and sacred process. His countless eyes suggest a personal connection to each soul, blending omnipresence with intimacy. In Sufi poetry, he's a figure of awe, not fear, guiding humanity home. Imagery and legends. Islamic tradition avoids depicting Azrael visually due to iconoclastic tendencies, but texts describe him as vast and compassionate. A legend claims he earned his role by retrieving earth for God to create Adam, proving his loyalty. Another tale has him weeping for the suffering he witnesses, showing empathy rare among psychopomps. Comparative analysis. 1. Appearance. Grim Reaper, skeletal, cloaked, scythe-wielding, earthly and macabre. Angel of death, angelic, winged, variable, light or dark, divine and celestial. Azrael, winged, multi-eyed, majestic, otherworldly and vast. 2. Role. Grim Reaper, cuts life and escorts souls, neutral, inevitable, no higher authority. Angel of death, takes life and guides souls under God's command, purposeful, judgmental. Azrael, extracts souls and delivers them to barzakh per Allah's will, compassionate, precise. 3. Tone. Grim Reaper, grim, impersonal, a relentless force of nature. Angel of death, authoritative, sometimes merciful, tied to divine justice. Azrael, gentle, to the righteous, stern, to the wicked, deeply personal. 4. Cultural context. Grim Reaper, medieval Europe's plague-driven fatalism, death as an equalizer. Angel of Death, Judeo-Christian moral order, death as God's servant. Azrael, Islamic submission to Allah, death as a sacred return. 5. Psychopomp specifics. All three guide souls, but the Grim Reaper lacks a clear afterlife destination, vague Christian cosmology. The Angel of Death aligns with heaven/hell, and Azrael targets Barzakh. The Reaper is standalone, while the Angel and Azrael serve a divine hierarchy. These psychopomps reflect their culture's attitudes toward death, the Grim Reaper's stark inevitability, the Angel of Death's moral framework, and Azrael's intimate divine service. Thanks for watching. See you on the next chapter of Grimoire of Monsters.